All right, so we are going to drop in for our second special kind of pull-out video from the Spanish-American War. Though the war was the shortest, it's got a lot of impact. So we're going to look at Teddy Roosevelt and his group of guys called the Rough Riders. Basically, the whole thing is an excuse for me to show you a couple of pictures. One is my good friend Mrs. Wells and Mr. Wells, and they're at a Washington Nationals game with Teddy Roosevelt, who's one of the presidents that runs a race during one of the innings at Nationals games. And also this picture of Teddy Roosevelt, which I think is probably the most beast picture of an ex-president that we've ever had. Yep, that is Teddy Roosevelt looking like he is either a pirate or just looking to beat somebody up. You would never guess from this picture that Teddy Roosevelt early on in his life was a sickly child, had asthma, and really was homebound for a lot of his early years. But eventually, the doctors encouraged his parents to have him pursue athletics. Thought that could really help, and so he ends up becoming a very athletic guy, one of our more active presidents. He attends Harvard. And actually writes a history that is still used of naval warfare during the War of 1812. And so early on in his life, he is having just all kinds of fun and all kinds of success. He will very sadly lose his wife and his mother on the same day. His wife dies in childbirth. His mother also passes away on the same day, and it really affects young Teddy Roosevelt. And he will leave New York City and travel out west to spend time in the territories. While he's out there, he becomes fascinated with the cowboy lifestyle. He will eventually take roles in the government, and when the the Spanish-American War is starting, he is the Assistant Secretary of the Navy. We talked already about the Spanish-American War, and basically that a lot of it's going to be fought over this little island of Cuba that's 90 miles south of Florida. And what's going to end up happening is Teddy Roosevelt understands that for fame and glory, right? He can't be Assistant Secretary of the Navy. He needs to be involved directly in the action. And so he decides he's going to recruit his own unit of troops, kind of like we saw Andrew Jackson do in the War of 1812. And he's going to lead them into battle. The group will eventually be known as the Rough Riders. They've got that awesome looking outfits that you see there with Teddy Roosevelt. Probably if you know much about Teddy Roosevelt or knew much about him when you were a kid, it's from the movie Night at the Museum. And that is the Teddy Roosevelt that we see depicted in Night at the Museum is one in this outfit. He knew where he wanted to go and recruit for his unit. He wanted to go back out west because the men that he saw out there were athletes. They were folks that he was convinced would make excellent soldiers. And so he goes and recruits these guys, even recruiting some of them in a hotel across the street from the Alamo, which we saw a little bit in the Mexican-American War. So these guys train on horseback, and they're trained to be excellent soldiers on horseback. And so they spend kind of the build-up to the Spanish-American War doing this type of training. The problem is when they get down to Florida to go to Cuba, there's no room for their horses on the ship. And so these guys who have trained to fight riding horses, doing cool things like leaning down underneath the horse's neck and shooting, stuff that you see in one of my favorite movies like Tombstone, they end up not being able to take those things. And so even though they do fight, they're going to be on foot. I can only imagine how difficult that must have been. You train to fight one way, and then when you get there, reality is very different. Most famous thing that happens during the Spanish-American War is the famous charge up San Juan Hill. Supposedly Teddy Roosevelt forgets his glasses as he's going up San Juan Hill. You can see here a quote from Teddy Roosevelt talking about the importance of machine guns during this war. And again, that's one of the big things that ends up coming out of the Spanish-American War is an appreciation for that particular weapon. This is the grave of Santiago, right? William E. English was part of the Rough Riders, fought with Teddy Roosevelt. Obviously, is has a Scott County connection there. His horse Santiago is wounded, but he brings him back to Scott County, and when Santiago passes away, he is buried out at Englishton Park. So this is my friend Mrs. Wells and I out there before a run. They have something called the Captain's Romp every summer. It's a short 5K that's run out that way, and the starting line is very close to the grave of Santiago. So maybe something to go and check out if you're looking for some Scott County history and the history of kind of our connection to some of these things. If you get out to Englishton Park, you can have a connection to the Spanish-American War, and you're really close to where Morgan's Raiders camped as part of the Civil War. So a lot of history out there in Lexington, Indiana.